probably ends up with at least 2 of those 4. And there's a very real chance they get more than 2 of those guys. It's just you obviously have to win some battles this summer, and you've got some major competition even for Amari Jefferson. It's funny, he's the in-state guy, but he may be as tough a pull as any of those guys, with Georgia and Alabama swinging pretty hard at him. So I still give Tennessee a real chance of landing him in the end because he is in-state and because he's so important to them. So I would maybe give Tennessee the slightest of edges in that one, but that's even projecting a little bit. So they're going to have big fights on their hands for all 3 of those guys. But yeah, I think they get at least a couple of them in the end, if I had to guess right now.
Do you think Amir Jackson took it personally at all? That like Jaden Riddell was the primary target for so long, and Tennessee was obviously zoned in, and then he comes in for 865 Live, and it seems like he made it a point. I think it was you, I heard on the background of the video with him in that media scrum, where he's definitely not all locked in on Florida, right? Like everyone just kind of assumed that he would end up in Florida, South Georgia kid, near the line. And I don't know, like, is it weird? Like, you've been covering recruiting for a long time, Ryan, like because these guys know, like, I'm sure Amir knows that like Jaden Riddell has been like the target and it was down to Georgia and Tennessee. Do they care about that, or do they ultimately like, no, I get it. Like he's a big target, and I'm next in line to just see if I can, if you can get me in the boat. Is that not awkward at all?
I don't think so, and I don't know that he was to the point that he was really looking into it all that much with all the schools he was considering. Tennessee wasn't, just running second for him the whole time. I don't think he was. I think because he hadn't been to campus before, I think the visit last weekend kind of put them on his radar a little bit more than they were before. But he had been up once before, but it was just for an AAU basketball tournament. He actually played on Jordan McRae's team in South Georgia and had come up to Knoxville before with that team, but otherwise had not visited Tennessee. So I think that visit put them on the radar more. Now he was also at Miami this week, actually just yesterday for a camp and workout and visit, spending a couple days there. Their sense seems to be that it's Florida and Miami at the top of his list right now. Florida's obviously made him a priority for as long as anybody so far. And I think at Georgia, to your point, similar situation. They obviously landed Jaden Riddell. He was kind of maybe the backup plan there too, or one of the backup plans at tight end if that had gone elsewhere. So I think you kind of know that's part of the deal. And I'm not sure he's far enough along that he was looking at that just yet, because he's looking at probably a September, October, maybe even later decision as of right now. But it sounds like Florida and Miami both are somewhat optimistic about their chances. Florida obviously feels the best about him right now, but Tennessee talking about getting an official visit from him in the fall. We'll see where things go with that. But he's obviously one of the guys we're tracking the most right now at tight end. It's just fairly new with Tennessee because he hadn't visited until last weekend.
Does your sense tell you, like with LeBlanc now gone, Riddell now gone, Amir trending potentially towards Georgia, Florida, or is Tennessee kind of running out of options here at tight end?
I wouldn't say they're running out of options. No, they've done a good job of casting a wide net. I think knowing that, first of all, you've got Jonathan Eccles that you've got to keep recruiting. Yeah. He's visiting Florida this weekend and USF later in the month, where he obviously knows Alex Golish and some of the guys on that staff pretty well. I don't think he ends up there, but he's still taking that visit. So you got to keep recruiting him. And so because of that, they've cast a pretty wide net at that position. Ja'Cory Whitted out of Alabama is another guy they've recruited some. Dylan Hipp has been on campus a couple times out of Arizona. Not going all in on him, but they've kept him in the picture enough that if they needed to go further down the board, they could. And the other guy that hasn't been to campus yet, but Roger Saliapaga, I believe is how you pronounce that name, but I've yet to confirm that with him. But he is he's scheduled to be in later next week for his first visit to Tennessee. So Tennessee in the picture with him, and I think certainly has a real chance of getting an official visit there. So they've got enough irons in the fire that I think they're okay right now. But yeah, it's always or often tricky to try to get 2 tight ends in the same class. And I think we're kind of seeing that, especially when you go up against programs like Georgia that has such a good track record with tight ends, that I think that was just tough to beat out in the end for Jaden Riddell, even though Tennessee did a great job with them, just to win those battles against programs like that have established NFL track record with guys at that position. That can be tough sometimes.
Quickly here, Williams, Nwaneri, Cam Franklin, and is it Cam Franklin and Fountain and Franklin? I get mixed up with their first names.
Yeah, Kamarion Franklin and Cameron Fountain.
Okay, because they both could be Cam. All right, that's what and I'm like, okay. Do you think all 3 end up at UT based on where things are headed right now?
Well, that's another one similar to the wide receiver position where you could see it. It's definitely possible. but to project it is assuming probably a lot. Nwaneri probably is going to wait until September